Hi, this is Mike, the host and creator of Mike No-Go Zones. And in this episode, I'm going to give you the director's cut and a behind the scenes of Syria.
There are certainly areas of high crime in Europe, as there are in the United States and other countries. No-go zone.
Now, what makes this episode very different from all the rest is my very first international episode, and going to Syria was definitely an eye-opening experience. For starters, I used a travel company called Traveling the Unknown, and the way I found out about them was that obviously when you are doing travel videos on YouTube, you follow other travelers on YouTube, and I happened to come across Traveling the Unknown, and he announced on his series that he was planning a trip to Syria, and he had everything all organized. The itinerary, getting the visas, lodging. I couldn't resist, and I had to sign up and decide to film an episode in Syria. Okay, what made this trip also different from all the other ones is that this was my first trip with a group of fellow travelers. All my other episodes I pretty much did all by myself, and this time I was with a group. Some of the people were from Ireland, some were from England. I met another fellow American there. We had a guy from France. So we were a mixed group of people, and it kind of made it a good learning experience. Syria has a very complicated history, especially its recent history. It's the government of Bashar al-Assad, which is secular, although they are aligned with Iran and Russia, versus extremist terrorist organizations, which are too many to list actually. And it was a battle for the soul of Syria, and for a while, it looks like the extremists were going to win this war, but the army of Bashar al-Assad actually they won, and I think except for like one province, the fighting is pretty much all over. But now comes the hard part: rebuilding the country. The amount of places that I got to see in Syria are too many to list, but some of the highlights was the Crac de Chevalier, which is this massive Crusader castle, and it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It really is amazing to see. Another favorite of mine was the Umayyad Mosque. Really amazing place. The architecture is incredible, and actually, even though it's a mosque, Christians are totally welcome to worship there too, because St. John the Baptist is buried there, so it's open to all faiths, and even though I'm not Muslim, they were really welcoming and nice to me. Another highlight of the trip was the ruins of Palmyra. Ruins of Palmyra is really an amazing sight to see, and it's a real shame what I saw was the aftermath of what ISIS did. And these ruins were the crowning jewel of the Syrian tourism economy. And ISIS really destroyed a lot of it, but what was still left was nice to see, but it's a real shame on what these extremists have done to the country, and it's really just, it breaks your heart. One of the most interesting towns that we saw in Syria was Malula. Now, what makes Malula different from most other Syrian towns is the fact that the people there still speak Aramaic. If you're not familiar with the Aramaic language, it's the language of Jesus Christ, and it was actually a widely spoken language in that part of the world about 2,000 years ago. It's pretty much almost a dying language, but in Malula they still speak it, and I got to hear a little bit of it while I was there, and it's really something to see, or something to hear, I should say. Syrian food, okay, it's really good. It's very similar to what you get in your typical Lebanese restaurant. A lot of grape leaves, a lot of lamb, a lot of chicken kebabs. It's very healthy. They eat a lot of vegetables and rice, and wine and beer was a nice surprise because Syria has a secular government, and there's so many religious minorities there that a lot of people there do drink alcohol, and it's pretty easy to find wherever you go. And I was really lucky to try the local beer and wine, because they're not allowed to export it due to the sanctions that the United Nations has put on them, and I find that very unfair. In Syria, I also got to try Baktash ice cream. It was actually featured on Bizarre Foods with Andrew Zimmern, and I got to try it there, and it really, I've never had ice cream like that in my life. It was very stretchy, almost like mozzarella cheese, but way better, and it was made with pistachios, so I'm a big fan of pistachios, and it was really, I'm really glad I got to try some. I also got to try some kunufa, which is one of my favorite desserts of mine, and it's really hard to find here in Miami, but I did get to find some there in Syria, so I'm glad I got to have some. Okay, the Syrian people, great people. Very friendly, and I never once hid the fact that I was American, and they were always willing to strike up a conversation with me. Two of our tour guides were from Syria, and they were really cool, very friendly. Really Hospitality is very big in Syrian culture, and it shows. You really feel the difference. Get a lot of smiles, a lot of handshakes, and they were very happy that we were visiting their country because they want to break the stereotypes of how their country is portrayed in the media, and they know it's being portrayed in the worst possible light. So they're willing to do anything to show like, hey, there's another side to Syria. We are good people. The extremists that you see here, most of them aren't even from Syria. They came from abroad, and they really want to destroy that image they have. The nightlife in Damascus, you can actually go out at night and have a drink and go to a club, go to a bar. I did not expect that at all. I figured it'd be like a very limited nightlife, but there's actually quite a few places to go to, and it was a nice, pleasant surprise. I did not expect that. Music was fun. It was a mix of top 40, EDM, and some Arabian music. So it was fun it was a nice mix to hear all those genres mixed together, and it was fun. I had a great time. And I remember one evening we went to a karaoke bar, and that was a really fun night out. When we went to Palmyra, we got to meet someone from the military to be our escort because there might have been a chance, just for security reasons. And the soldier fought gallantly against ISIS, and to meet him and hear his story, it gave me chills that he put his life on the line to fight probably the worst terrorist organization that ever existed on the planet. And he did it for love of his country and love of his people. And meeting him was I considered it an honor to meet him. During our stop in Palmyra, there was a TV station there because we were one of the very first tour groups from abroad to visit Palmyra, and I actually made it on Syrian TV for a few seconds. It was my 15 seconds of fame on Syrian TV. They were cool. I was really, I felt honored and flattered at the same time. Probably one of my favorite interviews I got to conduct in Syria was interviewing a fellow American there named Noah. And the reason I picked that story in particular because it's kind of an allegory of what Syria went through. So if you want to watch the full interview, by all means, click on the link below and watch the interview, because what he experienced is very similar to what the country experienced. And he told this crazy story of his travels to Cameroon, and it's quite entertaining. Also conversing with everybody in the group, because most of the people in the group have traveled to so many other places that I have not been to, that it kind of inspired me to travel to more offbeat places. And of course, once this pandemic subsides, I definitely have a lot of places in mind. But overall, my experience in Syria was probably one of the most amazing places I've ever visited. I would definitely go back because there's so much to discover there. I feel like I've only scratched the surface there. I made some good friends there, and I would definitely go back there as soon as possible. Okay, so this is Mike from Mike No-Go Zones, and that's behind the scenes of my experiences in Syria. So please don't forget to like and subscribe, and to watch the full episode, please go to the link down below. Thank you.